Hey folks, Winston for Carbide 3D here. For the Nomad 3, we are including a starter project that anyone can do to familiarize themselves with the machine and also create something useful in the process, a tool tray for Nomad accessories and hardware. Included with each machine is a piece of bamboo plywood left over from the machining of the Nomad's side panels. It measures approximately 6 by 7 inches, and it's from this piece that we will be making our tray. This tray is designed to accommodate 20 end mills in our standard plastic tool packaging, an assortment of loose 1/4-inch end mills or hardware, 2 ER collets, and whatever else you can throw in the open pocket. I'll first show you how to run the program, and then we can dig into the specifics of how this program was created and how you can customize the files we include and generate your own G-code. Our starting material, as I mentioned earlier, is this piece of bamboo plywood, the same material as our most popular Nomad enclosure option. To machine it, we'll need to secure it to the bed of our Nomad. Here I'm using the included MDF wasteboard since this will help protect the aluminum table if we accidentally cut too deep. Because we'll be using almost all of the bamboo available, we don't have room to be able to clamp around the perimeter of our stock material. So for this application, I'll be using double-sided tape. At a minimum, 2 strips of tape that nearly span the long edges of our material are recommended. I'm adding a smaller 3rd strip in the middle as insurance against this piece coming loose. When you stick your material down to the wasteboard, make sure that the MDF's surface is free of loose dust that may weaken the adhesion of the tape. Your bamboo should be aligned so that the edges of the stock are as close to parallel with the edges of the table as possible. Apply firm pressure for several seconds to make sure the tape has taken hold. Now it's time to set our origin so the CNC knows where to cut. If you haven't yet initialized your machine, do so now. When prompted to load an end mill in the spindle, you should install the number 102 1/8-inch end mill or an equivalent sized cutter. Now that the Nomad knows where the tip of the end mill actually is, we can move the machine to our starting location. Using the jog interface and decreasing our movement size increments as we get closer and closer to our material, position the end mill so it's centered over the corner of the stock. This is going to be our origin position in the X and Y axes. Open the Set 0 window in the interface and select 0x and 0y. We also need to set our 0 height, and for that we need to lower the end mill until it's just barely touching the surface of our material, or until the end mill is close enough that it catches on a sheet of paper. This is easier to do when the end mill is fully over our material, so I'll jog it inward from the corner a couple millimeters before finding my 0 height. Once that's done, go back into the Set 0 window and hit 0Z. Now the Nomad knows the exact coordinates of where to start machining from. Not remembering to set your 0 is the #1 cause of people's programs cutting in the wrong location. Going back to the run screen, I'll select my G-code program. It'll take a couple seconds for it to load. When that's done, we can hit Start Job to begin machining. During the initial startup sequence, Carbide Motion will prompt you to make sure that the correct tool is installed in the spindle. If it's not, this is your last chance to correct that. Once you hit resume, it's out of your hands. If all goes to plan, the Nomad will machine out all the pockets and holes in the tray, and then trim up the outside of the bamboo. This program should take about 35 minutes to run. If a lot of chips and dust are collecting on your workpiece, you can hit pause in Carbide Motion at any time, open the door and vacuum off your bamboo. Then just close the door and hit start again. When everything is done, you can pry and pull the tray off the wasteboard. And be careful here if your end mill is still installed in the spindle. Blood really doesn't look good on bamboo. Since bamboo has a moderately coarse fiber structure, there will be some fuzz left along the walls. To clean things up, you can hit all the edges with some 220 grit sandpaper. If you intend to machine a lot of wood on your CNC, a downcutting end mill would be something we highly recommend, since the reversed spiral of that kind of end mill will push wood fibers down rather than pull them up, leaving a cleaner cut. The Amana 46200-K cutter found in our AMS 119 kit would be a good drop-in replacement for the 102 end mill in this project. And if everything went according to plan, you should now have a functional tray to use. If something did go wrong and you need to try again, maybe your double-sided tape came loose, the included programs we provide should be usable on any 1/2-inch thick wood or plywood. If you're not sure what went wrong or something about this process was confusing to you, feel free to reach out to our support team for help. Now, if you want to get a little more advanced, we're also including the project files for this tray in both Carbide Create and Fusion 360 flavors, so that you can customize the tray and play around with how it's machined. However, for this video, we'll only be going in depth with Carbide Create. In the Carbide Create file for this project, we have a workspace that is 6 inches wide by 7 inches tall to match our stock. The origin is set at the lower left corner and at the top of the stock, and our stock is 1/2 inch thick. If you want to cut this in material that's not exactly 1/2 inch thick, and most hardware store plywood isn't, you'll want to change the setting here. Since the design and features of the tray were imported from an SVG file, we don't need to do anything in the design workspace of Carbide Create. Unless of course you want to perhaps customize the logo or add some text, or make some other kind of change to the file. Note that the boundaries of the tray are centered in our workspace and not butted up against any of the walls of our canvas. This gives us a little margin for error when we're machining our tray, as the tray is slightly narrower than our stock. In the toolpath workspace, we can click and drag to select everything except for the outermost profile and our logo. All of these features will be pocketed away to the same depth using an 1/8 inch end mill, which you can select through the user interface. If you don't know what cutting parameters to put in, you can go to our tool manager and select the number 102 end mill that's saved within the hardwood library for the Nomad 3. We'll want these pockets cut down to a depth that's less than our material's thickness. Anywhere from 0.3 to 0.4 inches will be fine. I'm going with 3/8 of an inch. Deeper pockets will take marginally longer to machine. To add the logo in the bottom of the main pocket of our tray, we can select the C-shaped profile and the surrounding hexagon. Selecting 2 different contours where one is inside the other, and then adding a pocket toolpath to them will machine away the area between the 2 contours. I'll tell Carbide Create to pocket this region to a depth that's 0.02 inches deeper than the pocket it's within, so in this case 0.395 inches. I'll also change the start depth to the depth of the main pocket, which is 0.375 inches. This lets Carbide Create know it doesn't need to worry about the material that was machined away previously. Note that these values are absolute, not relative. They don't add together, so we're not going to create a pocket that's 0.77 inches deep with these settings that goes all the way through our stock. To cut out our tray, we can select the outline of the tray and apply a contour toolpath to the outside. We can use the same cutting parameters as the pocketing toolpath. Make sure that this toolpath goes all the way to the bottom of the stock or 1/2 inch down. Then just export your CNC program by hitting the Save G-code button. Now you're ready to run this program like we showed earlier in this video. Hopefully this video will give you a good idea about how to create G-code with programs like Carbide Create and how to run them on the new Nomad 3. Good luck and have fun machining, folks.